Hello and happy holidays. Welcome to In Conversation. We're getting ready to say farewell to what has been an interesting and at times raucous year in Alberta politics. And at the center of it all has been Danielle Smith. Since securing a mandate from Alberta voters in May, Smith has been focusing on her vision of our province, a vision that isn't without controversy. Smith wants to pull Alberta out of the Canada Pension Plan, along with over $300 billion in assets. She's also gearing up for a fight with Ottawa over its mandate to reach net zero by 2035. To fix long wait times in the ER and improve access to a family doctor, the UCP is planning a major overhaul of our healthcare system over the next 2 years. Bottom line, there's a lot to get to as we unpack this past year in Alberta politics. Recently, I had the opportunity to go to Calgary to meet one-on-one with the Premier and Brooks-Medicine Hat MLA, Danielle Smith. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Great, great.
Nice to
Good
see
to see
you.
you again. Nice to see you.
Are you guys good if I chime in for 2 minutes? Try to keep it to 2 minutes.
Sure.
That's all good.
Sorry, I don't have my, did you bring my phone?
How many
They
phones?
put me back to back to back, so who are we here?
This is Chat TV Medicine.
Oh, of course!
Yeah. Now, how many phones do you carry if your assistants all carry two?
I have 3 phones.
I was going to say you must have more than one.
So I have a government phone that I use when I'm traveling because you never know. We have a good plan when we travel internationally.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you don't end up with massive bills. So I use that when I travel. I have a historic phone that I've had for, 12 years that has all my contacts in it. And so I want people to still be able to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
And then I have my other phone that I got when I started into this new job. And now I have more people contacting me on that one, so I'm sort of stuck managing. My problem is I'm managing mostly just 2 phones, because I don't have very many people contacting me on my government phone.
I have one phone, and that works well enough for me.
My dad has none, so he has the most peaceful life of all of us.
So you ready?
Yeah.
You ready for some Medicine Hat questions?
If I can get into Medicine Hat mind frame. I was
Okay.
just down there again. Went to the Penn show. Were you there?
Didn't see you down there, but our reporter Eli was down there at the Helium.
Oh, that was so good too. We got such great stories happening down there. Penn show was awesome because they have all of the different products lined up so you can taste them all.
Yeah.
Oh, it's delicious.
was
And then
good
they have this little duffer who was probably 3 years old, fluffing up the cat. I've never seen cattle look so good and so clean.
Sage Watson's family was there.
Yeah.
The Olympian, her family was there.
Okay.
So-
I've met her at a previous
Yeah.
event. I didn't see her there this time, but.
So why don't we jump right into this? How has this year been for you?
Oh, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I often think how it's only been really just over 13 months. I won the leadership in October, went right into a by-election campaign, won that at the beginning of November, had my first day in the legislature November 29th, and then we had to get into an election, which again had to run not only a local campaign but also a province-wide campaign. And here we are. I think we've made a lot of progress, and so I'm pretty pleased of where we're at.
You do get to spend a certain amount of time in Brooks and Medicine Hat. Is there more time that you could be spending there?
Here's how I approach it, and I think people knew this when they voted for a leader of a party, that first of all, the job is in Edmonton because we're there in the legislature for pretty intensely for about 5 months of the year. But secondly, I also have obligations in the rest of the province. But I come down for a couple of days every month and make sure that I'm doing high value events and lots of meetings, lots of tours, so that I know what the issues are in the riding. I talk with the constituency assistants each week so that they can keep me up to date on the issues that are coming into the office. And so I feel very connected to the community. So I'm always happy to find opportunities to be in the riding.
So you saw that the pamphlets came out last week, the school pamphlets teaching children how to just better smoke crack. And what are your thoughts on that?
You know, we partner with different groups because we want them to give good public health information. And we partnered with that group in particular because we've got a syphilis crisis in Alberta, and those were the kind of things that we think we need to make sure that people understand what their risk is and how to protect themselves. In no way would we ever have thought that there would have been pamphlets instructing people how to smoke crystal meth or crack. There's nothing safe about smoking meth. There's nothing safe about crack. And to have that available to kids as young as 14, I mean, somebody's radar was off. So we're doing an investigation about our support for that organization.
Is there
I was very pleased to see the principal stepped in right away and removed the pamphlets. But the damage is done to some of those kids who would never have even contemplated that. And now they have essentially an instruction manual for it. I mean, some adults have got to give their head a shake.
Is there a chance that SafeLink will lose their funding?
I'll leave that to the health minister, but we'll make it very clear that materials that are going into schools have to be age appropriate. So we've already had a conversation about that with my education minister, and we'll be putting some systems in place to make sure that happens.
Okay. Time for us to take a break here on Chat Television. We'll be right back with more with the Premier Danielle Smith, the MLA for Brooks-Medicine Hat. Most recently, you were down in Medicine Hat for the helium plant. We watched you fill up a bag with the helium.
They wouldn't let me inhale it, if you can believe
Really?
it. No, they wouldn't. I just thought, my goodness, did I cause myself some damage all those years ago when I used to inhale helium? You have to be a certain age to understand that joke now. But they wanted to show me how pure it was, so they put the bag in, and then they held it up. You know, in the olden days too, you would have just lifted those that helium and it would have flown off. I don't think you can do that now either. So,
that's good for business to have a helium plant. Any other plants that you could maybe tell us are coming to Medicine Hat?
I hope there's more. I know that, for instance, that company has 2 more plants that they want to set up.
Okay.
And helium, I was making light of it, but it is a really important
Making
critical.
light of helium?
That's a bad dad joke, okay? But I think people might not realize how many uses helium has.
Yes.
It's not only for our MRI, so that's medical usage for it, but for semiconductors as well, to make sure that all of those there's a process where they need helium. And then space flight. So we've got a number of private sector companies that are now experimenting with space flight. So it's going to be a growing.
Great for voices too.
I don't think we'll ever see it used that way. Everyone's going to look at that and think, oh my gosh, that's $7,000 per, I don't know, million metro.
I'm glad you wanted to try that though. Listen, since you first started to campaign down in Medicine Hat and Brooks area, Highway 3 has been something that you and I have talked a great deal about. How long until Highway 3 is twinned between Medicine Hat and Burdett?
I would say there's a couple of things that we had a problem with in this first leg that we had announced. I think that there's some utilities issues that had to be sorted out, and some environmental assessment issues. So we were wanting to see the construction start in 2023. It now looks like it's moved to 2024.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I heard from my transportation minister. The entire length of Highway 3 twinning is 8 different segments.
Yes.
And so I will be a very strong advocate for making sure that we do the ones closer to the major cities first, because there are ones that go further on down towards the Crow's Nest Pass. But we've got to make sure that Medicine Hat to Lethbridge has the ability to have seamless flow of traffic, because that's where a lot of our agri-food business is going to be developed. And I do have another strong voice down there in Grant Hunter, the MLA and parliamentary secretary responsible for agri-food investment. So he is a steady voice in making sure that that stays on the radar. Okay. So we'll see more in the upcoming budget about the pacing of some of these major projects. But there was a reason I indicated to my transportation and economic corridors minister that economic corridors should be a priority, because
we'll take that Highway 3 twinned as soon as you can get that done. It's
so dangerous, and there's just so much traffic there, and we have to make sure that we're having a safe route for commuters, but also an effective route for business.
Yeah, where are we at with the Alberta pension plan right now?
We're in the middle of waiting for the chief actuary to give us their alternative calculation of what the asset transfer would be. When we signed into the pension back in the 1960s, it was Ontario, actually, who committed to a formula that would allow them to reconsider at any future point how they would be able to exit. That's why we were able to take that formula and do our calculation. So our calculation is that with all the over contributions we've made, invested at the rates of return that they promote, that we're entitled to $334 billion. They dispute that, and so we're waiting to see what their answer is. And as soon as the answer comes back, we'll take that back out to Albertans to see if they want to move forward with a referendum.
The telephone town hall to give you an indication that Albertans wanted their own pension plan?
I would say that most people are of the mindset that they don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I can understand why that's the default position. But I would say the more people hear about the significant asset transfer, the significant reduction in premiums, the benefits increase that we would be able to have, is making them, I think, a lot more serious about it, that maybe we could do this better. Maybe it does make sense for us to have our own plan. I would say it's definitely split. There's no question about it. But I think there's a large number of Albertans that are open-minded and just want more information. They want to know what the asset transfer is going to be. They want to know what the impact will be on contributions and benefits. And they want to know more about portability. So we've got to do a little bit more work to bridge that information gap. And as soon as we get that information, we'll commence with the in-person sessions.
And you still maintain that it'll be put to a vote before anything does happen?
It's now in law. We passed a law in the fall session that the only way that we would ever move towards an Alberta pension plan is 100% of the assets has to be used for the pension. The contributions have to be the same or lower. Benefits have to be the same or higher. And it has to be put to a referendum of the people.
The final question I have for you is on the Sovereignty Act. How far are you willing to go to show Ottawa that Albertans will not settle or suffer for what Ontario has to say versus what Albertans want?
I have to say, Medicine Hat's a bit of a model on this, aren't they? Gas generator, also electricity producer, and it creates a little bit of control over that regional energy environment. And we have to make sure that we have that same autonomy. We have the right to develop our resources, and we will. We have the right to develop our own electricity system, and we will. So one of the reasons why I invoked the Sovereignty Act is to send a message to the federal government that we're simply not going to enforce their net zero target by 2035. It's not feasible, not practical, not constitutional, and would result in a lack of reliability and a lack of affordability in our power grid. So we're going to build next year more natural gas plants. We'll use the best technology available on carbon emissions reduction, but we know that there's limitations in the technology. It's going to get better and better as we continue to roll it out, and that's why I have a lot of confidence that we can reach our targets by 2050. And that's what we're trying to get the federal government to understand. Is that if we can align around a 2050 target, then we can partner on a lot of things. We've partnered on carbon capture utilization and storage tax credits. We've partnered on investment in Dow Chemical, our first net zero petrochemical plant. We're partnering on Heidelberg's net zero cement plant. We've partnered on Air Products' net zero hydrogen plant. Those are all things that are really positive. And I think that I want to build on the things that we can work together on. Unfortunately, we have an environment minister at the federal level who is just a 99% ideologue and not willing to work in the spirit of cooperative federalism. And so I would hope, and I've called for this, I would hope that the federal Prime Minister would replace the Environment Minister with somebody who I think is going to be more constructive and somebody who would work in the interest of the law and also the interest of national unity. And in the meantime, we'll continue to assert our constitutional authority.
Speaking of Stephen Guilbeault, is there anything he can do that you would have a positive thing to say about?
Oh, I wish he'd resign. I would be very that would be very positive for the country, honestly. I mean, it wasn't just me, because I've tried to work with him, and I've talked to my counterparts, and they said, I don't think you're going to get very far. And I've talked to industry leaders, and they said, well, he comes in and does a sort of pro forma type of consultation to check off a box, but doesn't listen. And I've had that experience myself as well. The thing that I find the most frustrating now is the federal government has lost 2 cases, and he's acting as if they don't exist, and that didn't happen. And that is, I think that's the most troubling, is when you have a federal minister who thinks that the rules don't apply to him, then we're going to have to assert that they absolutely do. And that's what I'll be doing all throughout the next year.
Do you think in any way you're coming across as hard to deal with to Ottawa, or are you just fighting for Alberta?
I would say that it depends on the minister that you'd be talking to.
Okay.
I've got a great relationship with Minister Champagne because he has helped us with the de Havilland project, with Air Products, with Dow Chemical, and probably more. And he's the example of a minister who celebrates the achievements from an industry investment point of view of every province. And that's what the spirit that I wish that all of the other ministers would take. Same with Krista Freeland. She comes from Alberta. And we've worked very well with her on developing the carbon capture utilization and storage tax credit. And that's what's so weird about it, is to have a good relationship with some ministers and then to have Guy Beau acting as if he's a one-man band and acting in a way that I think is outside the Constitution. So I think we can have a good relationship and work together with ministers who are going to be constructive. But I've since determined that Stephen Guilbeault is not one of them.
We'll continue to watch everything that you do. Any big plans for the holidays over Christmas and New Year's?
You know, holidays are just a great time to spend with family. I come from a family of 5 kids, so there's always a big Christmas dinner at Mom and Dad's place. And then my husband and I also get to spend some time with his son over the Christmas break. So it'll just be a little more quiet.
Well, we look forward to whatever you do. It keeps us in the news business.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
While Danielle Smith is a political veteran, this year marked a new venture for Justin Wright in politics. When In Conversation returns, we'll talk to Mr. Wright about his first few months in office. Hello, welcome. Nice to see you.
Welcome. I appreciate your welcome, I should say. It's a real honor to be here, and I'm so thankful for my first real on-air session.
Well, every time we seem to meet, there's a group of other people debating you.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time, and I mean, Danielle Smith is usually debating you, and there's other people who want your job debating you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to have some alone time.
Absolutely.
Some one-on-one time.
Absolutely. You get to have some fun questions asked.
Okay, so let's start with the funnest question that I could ask, and I know funnest isn't a word. How has your year been?
You know, it's been remarkable. You have an idea of what the job really entails, and then you get in there and you realize what the reality of the situation is, and that you don't truly appreciate the depth in which it goes. And your first time sitting in the chamber during question period is one where you see it on television, you see it on YouTube or something like that. You don't appreciate the intensity of what goes on over question period. And I had an opportunity to connect with some of our peers in Saskatchewan last month, and we were able to expose some of our American counterparts to what a question period looks like in Canada.
Yeah.
And their statement afterwards was, I don't know how you guys do it, just because of kind of what that looks like and being very different from what they're used to.
Well, question period gives any member of the House or the Ledge the opportunity to stand up and speak. And everything you say goes on the record and potentially could haunt your political career forever.
Forever.
So have we seen you stand up in the Ledge?
Yeah, so I've had the fortunate setting to be able to give my maiden speech, where I talked a bit about the great things that we've got down here in the Southeast, a bit about my family, the why between running and things like that. And then I've had a number of questions. We've had a question about water and balancing the needs of the environment, irrigation, and what municipalities need. Another question specifically pertaining to HALO and the dispatch service on how that happens. And I've been able to debate a few different bills, and it's been really good. Your first one, your maiden speech was a bit daunting, because you're thinking, I got 15 minutes, and you've got two sides to that coin. It's the panic of you've got 15 minutes and you have to be engaging and thoughtful and meaningful. And the other side to it is you've only got 15 minutes to be thoughtful, engaging, and meaningful, right? So now that you've had a few months to be in the position, why haven't you done anything? Why is Highway 3 not finished? Why is the water levels not higher? Why is the levels of water low? And I'm kidding when I say why haven't you done anything? But it's like, is it harder to get a project going than you thought it was going to be? There's definitely added layers that you don't necessarily understand. There's a lot more process between our different committees, such as Treasury Board, or I've been fortunate enough to sit on a few different committees, one of which is economic diversification. So really taking the approach of how are we adding to our economy without subtracting, because that would be economic replacement committee, right, if we were to do it that route. So it's been really great to connect with different international organizations that are looking to set up. So it's really about selling the mission, vision, values of what we envision for Alberta when it comes to industry and what we bring. And we've seen some really great successes, whether it's the new hydrogen project for Dow Energy up in Fort Saskatchewan, the helium project that I know you had discussed earlier today, but even some of our more local wins, like S3 setting up shop for manufacturing and connecting with different folks that are working on the economic development of Medicine Hat, and really how aligned we've been in regards to bringing in things like manufacturing, and really that being a great industry to backfill from when we ultimately lost oil and gas in regards to organizations that were set up shop here in Medicine Hat.
Well, we're just about out of time, so you'll have to come back.
Oh, I'd love it. I would love to come back.
Can you come
anytime.
back tomorrow?
Absolutely.
No, not in the new year. And that's In Conversation for 2023. 2024 looks to be another interesting year in Alberta politics, and we at Chat News look forward to covering it for you. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Dan Reynish.